No, I'm amazing and I'm worth this, period, dot.
If you want to work for me, if you want to see these amazing itineraries I put together, I'm happy to do so, but I can't do it for free.
I always tell people if you've got a Caribbean person and they're not willing to pay a fee and you still work it, don't get pissed when they book through Costco. That's on you.
What I have learned is the second I put that guard down and I change my process, I regret it every second. Welcome to the Travel Agent Guide, the podcast pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to be a travel agent. We're talking real life, the challenges, the wins, the money, the mistakes, and the growth. Whether you've been in the travel industry for years or are new to it, we're in this together, and you're exactly where you need to be.
Hello, hello. Today we are going to talk about how to pitch a fee so that you never get turned down. I am with the amazing Haley DiCarlo, and I want to, before you take over, Haley, I want to throw it out there. I just pulled your numbers from last year, and you pitched over, not pitch, you earned over $20,000 in fees that you pitched. And your average fee was around $350. And I think that there's probably half the audience cringing right now at thinking of pitching $350. So I guess I want to understand, like, why do you charge a fee first? And then we can dive into, all right, how do you always seem to make this happen?
Of course. Okay, so why do I charge a fee? I learned very early on that if I'm going to make something of this business, I need to take it serious, which means my clients need to take me serious. I want to go into every trip knowing that a client is going to commit to me if they are a new client. And yeah, I just started. I had another advisor when I came into the industry who was doing $250 fees. I listened to her talk about it a little bit. I'm like, okay, let me try to understand this. And however agent books a fee is or pitches a fee, it's really up to them and how they do it. Just how I've been able to do it works for me. I've helped a lot of advisors learn to do it. And I say value yourself. Know that you're worth every penny of it.
I
You need
love
to get,
that.
yeah, you need to get burnt a lot, right? You need to have a lot of trips not work out and walk away from you, ghost you, for you to get that fuel to be like, okay, enough's enough. Like, I'm done doing all this research, not getting paid for it. I think what a lot of people don't know is how travel advisors get paid. And even a lot of travel advisors need to understand how we get paid. When you go and you're coming into the industry, the reality is you know nothing. I mean, you might have booked a trip or two for yourself, but understanding suppliers and how everything works, it takes time. A trip, if you have somebody coming to you because they want to go to Hawaii, and I'm just saying this because back in 2021, everyone went to Hawaii because of COVID. Um, you look at it and you're spending all this time in research and figuring out what's going to be the best route to book this for your client because everything's very client dependent. By charging that upfront fee, you are one positioning yourself as an expert, right? You're letting them know, "Hey, I don't get paid on this. If you don't book with me, I don't get paid." For me, that was the biggest thing is I needed people to know if you want to work for me, if you want to see these amazing itineraries I put together, I'm happy to do so, but I can't do it for free. I'm working two other jobs. I have my kids all the time. And nobody knew this, right? I didn't go
Yeah.
and tell them that, but it was the reality of I need to value my time. If I'm taking on a client, commit to me because I am committing to you more than you even know, right? So that was kind of how I started is going in with that mentality of okay, and I started at $99. That was where I felt comfortable. You got to get the marbles out of your mouth every time and you got to create your process and where in your consultation you're going to let your client know about it.
So Haley's about 5 years into the industry and she's gone from $99 to $350 just to highlight that. But the other thing that you said a couple of times was you need to get burned. And I don't know if you remember, but when we bring on our agents, we train them not to pitch a fee for the first 6 months. And I don't usually explain to them why, but in the back of my head, that's why. I think if you get burned a handful of times, and everybody listening, like that feeling of getting burned, how frustrating it is when someone ghosts you after you did this amazing, beautiful proposal and you poured your heart and soul into it. and then they didn't book for whatever reason, or they booked direct, or they booked with another agent. There's all of these reasons. And I think if you can go into a consultation and you pitch your fee, knowing how frustrating that is, it just builds your confidence to be like, no, I'm amazing and I'm worth this, period, dot. And I also want to say the reality of the matter is most of us are probably going to add some type of fee as an agency fee on the back end that the client's most likely not going to see. So why not take a small portion of that and make sure that the client sees it? That way they're just committed up front and it's just such a different conversation. After they know that, yes, I've paid the fee, I'm obviously committed to this, you get a hell of a lot less questions, or at least that has been my experience. So I love that, like, you need to get burned. So if you're brand new, maybe put a pause on this episode and come back in 6 months. If you've been doing this for more than 6 months, you need to plug in because we're about to tell you exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it happen. All right. So before we do that, though, is there any reasons you don't charge a fee? Like at this point, I'm pretty sure you would charge your mom a fee.
I mean, I have really taught to stick with your process and do it every time because what I have learned is the second I put that guard down and I change my process, I regret it every second. There are certain like there's certain trips and clients that sometimes you don't, but at this point I have implemented fees across the board for everybody just because you already traveled and did a trip with me doesn't mean that I'm not spending another 6 to 8 hours preparing your next trip. That's, and some things happen. Like I've had clients who've come back to me like, Haley, I'm so sorry. We had a change of plans. Somebody lost their job, they can't travel, or somebody got sick and they have to put it off, or anything like this. And those things happen and that's fine. But I need to still get paid for the work that I'm doing. So by implementing the fee, I guarantee that no matter what, the hours that I work for a client, I'm compensated for.
I love that because everyone and their grandma says, well, I don't charge repeats. And I think or referrals, we often hear that. Oh, I don't charge a referral or I don't charge a repeat client. And I think the reality of the matter is repeats can burn you too, but also repeats know your value so much more than people that have never worked with you.
My
So,
repeats, and sorry to cut you off, Bird,
no,
but
you're
my
good.
repeats are such faithful, loyal clients that if I haven't processed the fee yet and something happens, they will say to me, Haley, I know I owe you money for your time, so please go ahead and process a fee. And those are kind of how you build those relationships. They're understanding. Where if I went into the first trip with them and never had this implemented, it's really hard to go backwards, right? Where now they know my process, they know what I'm about. So that relationship just becomes better.
Yeah, I love it. And that's kind of what I was getting at is they know you, they trust you, they love you. Why would you not charge a repeat a fee? It's free money at that point, especially because you know they're going to pay it. They're excited about working with you again. All right, so let's talk about when we pitch the fee before we get into exactly what you say.
Yeah.
When do you typically have this conversation, consultation, presentation, in between? Is it through email? And whenever it is, like when in the consultation, when in the proposal, like what does that look like for you?
Yeah. One thing to note, I am a very hands-on travel advisor. I realize there's a lot of people probably listening to this that are going to be like, wait a minute, you do Zoom calls with your clients? Because I think that's very common in the industry to not do that. I am not a travel advisor who pumps out quotes. It's just not how I do things, but it doesn't mean you can't. But I basically am selling my value, right? So the first step is you're getting on this Zoom call where I get an opportunity to meet my client and, working from home. And a lot of my clients don't live in Massachusetts, right? So I don't get that opportunity to meet them. I want to meet my client. I want to see their face. I want to know who they are. And that I do via Zoom call. So I think right there that already sets you apart from a lot of people in the industry. So I've gotten on calls where people will be like, "Oh, I've talked to an agent before, and this is very different." So in that consultation, when I'm in a Zoom call and having a conversation with my client, after I hear about their trip is when I go in and I say, okay, well, let me tell you about me and how I work, right? I want to make sure we're aligned and I want to make sure this is exactly what you're looking for. And then I get to work.
I love that. Okay, so in the consultation, but not in the beginning of the consultation. It's really at the end, after you've gotten to know them, you've told them a little bit about yourself, then you kind of get into it. I've heard a couple of advisors out there say like they charge to even get on the consultation. I
That's
typically counsel against it because I'm like, look, this industry is so it doesn't have the best reputation. Let's be honest with ourselves. So I really like the idea of getting on the consultation and building some of the value throughout the conversation, right? They're going to Greece, they're asking you about islands, you're throwing things out there. They realize you know what you're talking about. You're like, oh man, she's been there, she's done this, she's done that. Okay, amazing. So then when you pitch the fee, it feels a lot more like you're worth it, even if they don't know you already, even if it's not a repeat, right? If it's a very first time, I love that. So you've built some value in there first. Do you often find that you get to that stage and they walk away?
not often. I feel like maybe I had this conversation again a couple days ago, and I think we touched on it. Maybe 1 out of 10 people. Um, whatever that looks like, I'm not, to be honest, I don't really track it because it's very unusual for that to not happen. People are willing to pay fees. They want an expert, they want somebody who knows the destination, who does this for a living, and they're willing to pay for it. The way I was kind of explaining, if a client comes to me for a $20,000 trip to Italy, and I'm pitching them a $350 fee, that is just such a low piece of what they're actually paying. It's why wouldn't they invest it, right? It kind of doesn't make sense. So it's very unusual. If somebody's not willing to pay your fee, the odds are they want a deal in the Caribbean and it's a $3,000 or $4,000 budget. That's a different story, right? So I would still encourage you, if that's the case, pitch the fee, pitch the $100, get them to buy into you. Because if not, they're probably price checking you and going through other agents and they're just looking for the best deal. I don't sell the best deal. I sell the best value. What can I give you the best trip for the money that you're spending? The support, everything that I do as a travel advisor kind of is wrapped into that.
Ooh, I love that. I always tell people if you've got a Caribbean person and they're not willing to pay a fee and you still work it, don't get pissed when they book through Costco. That's on you. Like, you've got to understand that that's what clients are doing a lot of times when they're looking for those cheap, cheap, cheap prices. Okay, beautiful. We know when. Tell me a little bit more about how you're building the value throughout the process before pitching the fee. So we're not quite to how to word it, but are you doing anything
Yeah.
other than just talking about the destination and your services to build value? Is there anything special
Yeah.
there?
I spend the first 10-15 minutes, I want to talk about their trip. Why are they here? Why are you looking for a travel agent? What have you already come across on your own, or what prompted this conversation between us? So by understanding their destination, and if it's, again, I mean, tons of destinations. I say Italy a lot because Italy is probably my top seller. But when you're going into these consultations, people want to hear that little bit of expertise for you. Doesn't mean you've sold a destination 100 times. Take 15 minutes, prep for the consultation, and sound like a true expert when you get on the call. But you're going to go into it and you're going to talk about the destination and kind of give them some insight on, what you're imagining for them. Talk about previous trips that maybe you've booked, or talk about your experience when you've gone yourself, right? That is right there, kind of you're positioning yourself for that fee. After that, then that's when I kind of dive in more about how I operate.
I love that. And I love that you take the time and space to explain your process. Because even if they've worked with a travel agent before, you've already kind of mentioned it. Every travel agent does things a little different. And I think just the value in saying, okay, now I'm going to go research and design this trip. We're going to get back on a Zoom call. I'm going to show you pictures of the different options so we can walk through and make decisions together. And you're really breaking down the process. I think helps them feel more confident that you actually know what you're doing. Travel agents can be a little like realtors where everybody knows one, but does everybody know a really professional one, right? We know a lot of realtors that sell 2 houses a year. Is that really where you want to be making your biggest investment in your life? Probably not. Not me, at least. I want someone that's selling, 50 houses a year, and I know that they know what they're doing. And with travel agents, it's so different. It's hard to know. And I think just the fact that you spend time talking about your process and the fact that you have a process that helps the client build value. That helps the client understand this is a real professional. She knows what she's doing. Do you agree that they kind of react to that in that way?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. They want to hear that you've booked a trip here before, or just even if you have never booked a trip, I had to fake it until I made it. Like I've done so many trips of destinations I've never been to, which now the leverage I always have is I've booked it before, most likely, right? But there are still destinations that I have never booked. And I have to go into that call saying, okay, just because I didn't book a trip there, just because I haven't been there, doesn't mean I haven't made a relationship with a supplier that I can book through. It doesn't mean I haven't done education on the destination. So just positioning yourself with that client is super important. So go into every consultation with a little bit of prep, understanding the destination, and sell yourself.
Ooh, I love that. Okay, and we've talked several times. Your average fee is 350, but what does it range and kind of why? Why would you charge more or less, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it really is dependent on the trip itself. It depends on how many travelers are traveling. It depends on destination. And I kind of have just based it off of a couple different things, right? We all know there's hundreds of suppliers, DMCs to use within the industry. If I'm building out an FIT trip, then I have to be mindful of that time and how much it really takes to do it. And that's where my fees come in. If I'm going right through a DMC where I'm going to lean on them for full support to put the trip together, maybe I don't need to have such a high fee, right? It really just depends. 350 is usually my baseline for any Europe trip going a week or over. But it depends. If there's a family of five going to, like, let's say Switzerland and I'm FITing it, that might be a little more, between $400 and $500. It's really dependent on the time I know it's going to take for me to put together the trip. Not only that, something else to keep in mind with when you're putting together a trip is the client and how fast they want to move. You may not know this until the proposal, but there are trips that you work months on after. I've put together a great proposal. My clients are ready to book fantastic. I try very hard to make sure they're ready to book with a consultation or with a proposal, but that's not always the case. Some of these trips you're working for months just to get it to actually close. So now add up all the time, the hours, the work that you've put into it. I promise you that 350 comes down to nothing at the end of the day.
You're not wrong.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Okay, and with that, are your fees non-refundable?
100%. There's no, I mean, no, they're not. I've talked to a lot of advisors who have said, "Hey, we're gonna add this into your overall cost, but why do that, right? What's the point of doing that? Make your money now for the work you're doing now. The commissions you make at the end is basically you taking care of that client from the minute they book until the day they travel. That pre-departure call, that welcome home call, that a lot of travel advisors do in destination support, some don't. So you have to look at the level of service that you provide to say that this number makes sense for me and my business.
I love it. And what does your fee include exactly?
It includes me, right? So, I mean, for me specifically, it includes not only me, but Nessie, we talked about in a previous episode, my guest experience manager. So, usually about 60 days out, Nessie will reach out to my clients where I'm always looped in. This is where that admin kind of comes in. And from there, she will go in and start doing like some of the fine details, right? Are there any additional excursions that you need? Do you need spa appointments? Do you need dinner reservations? All those things that, let's be honest, I don't have tons of time for. It takes a lot. There's a lot of back and forth with clients, and depending on the depth of the trip and how long they're traveling for and what expectations are, it's a lot of work. If you're just doing a Caribbean all inclusive, that's different, but building out a Europe trip, that's a lot of work. So I have that included with obviously my fee and what all my clients get. And then pre-departure checks as well. So aside from me, I always have second eyes on a client's trip and I make sure they know that. People love it. They want to know that I'm a human. I make mistakes all the time. But if one of my support team can catch that mistake for me, they save me money, time, headaches, all the things that I can't do when I'm fully operating by myself.
Yes, I love that. And that's something we've built out here at Sava Travel, where any of our ICs that come to work for our host agency, they can choose to use our pre-departure team, meaning that they basically pass off every single booking they have. Pre-departure goes in and makes sure every single booking aligns with what's in the itinerary, but they also contact every hotel and they say, hey, just reconfirming, is this the right hotel room? Is there any construction going on right now? It's an anniversary. Don't forget, da da da. Can I get a handwritten note in the client's room? Right? All of these little things that make a difference, as well as contacting the transfer companies. I mean, like, this is a flight number. Make sure that you have everything aligned. And I think that second set of eyes is such a game changer. But Haley, I'm gonna challenge you on this. I do not tell clients that my fees is for during travel support. I tell them it's a research and design fee. The fee is for me to design out the trip because every now and then I've kind of gotten the like, oh, well, I booked on my own. I want the fee back now. And I want to be very clear that the fee is for me to get on a
Yes.
proposal call with you.
Right.
And if I get on a proposal call with you, that fee is mine, period. Dot. If for
Oh,
some reason you
yeah,
cancel before, maybe I could have the conversation about it. But if I've taken the work to do or taken the time to do the work, like the fee is really for me to design the trip. Everything else comes because I'm amazing and you've booked through me. That's kind of how I pitch it. What I don't want someone to do is say, well, you didn't answer the phone at 3 in the morning when I was in Paris, and now it's all your fault, and I want my $350 back.
yeah.
Right.
No, I would never pitch my fee as a in destination support. Absolutely not. That is where you sit there and you say, okay, my fee is compensating me for the time it takes for me to get your trip put together for us to hop on the next call. So I am very particular about that, 100%.
I love that. I
The
love
in
that.
destination support, I mean, you want to help your client, but that's where we'll touch base, I'm sure, in one episode of what having a pre departure call is, right?
We absolutely will for sure. So you kind of highlighted it before, but I want to make sure we really dive in a little bit deeper on the plan to go fee. We get a lot of people that want to do this plan to go and tell us again, why is that a bad idea? Meaning that I charge you $100 and it goes towards your trip. Like, why would that be a bad reflection on me at the end of the day?
I have never thought about doing a plan to go fee. I've seen other people do it. For me, I don't know. If a client doesn't want to book with me, I don't want to make them, right? And there's that. I don't feel like you're tied into it where now to get your money back, you have to book the trip, right? You pay my fee, cut ties, we move on, which I guess would essentially be the same. I don't know, Bird. I'm not really sure about that process. I don't know much about it, to be
That's
honest.
fair. So it's something that I hear people mention a lot. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
I plan fees, but it's a plan to go. So I apply it to their trip
Yeah.
if they book with me. And I guess for me, I've always kind of thought of it as it means that they're not really all that committed to you at the end of the day. I mean, yes, it's non-refundable if they don't book through you, but I really want someone to understand that my services are worth money. And if I am telling them my services are worth money only if you don't book through me, it just doesn't feel like you're gaining the same level of respect from the client that we should. Also, realistically, as I kind of said before, like you're probably going to add some commission somewhere. Why not just pitch the $100 fee? And so I would say if you're out there doing a plan to go situation, number one, it's fairly aggravating to have to keep that money in an escrow account and then apply it to
Mm.
their trip. And if you're not keeping that money in an escrow account, that's technically illegal and you're just giving your accounting self a lot of problems. So instead, just charging it as an outright fee, but I would even challenge you if you're uncomfortable, start with a lower fee. When I first got into this industry, I purchased a franchise from a franchise company called Dream Vacations. It was not a good fit for who I was, but I used to kind of giggle because they didn't make you, but it was built into their invoicing system that you charged a $25 fee. And I just kind of came back immediately and had to giggle at myself because I was like, look, if I'm going to have the uncomfortable conversation about you owe me something, it's not going to be over 25 bucks. Right? Like
Yeah.
it's going to at least be over $100. But if you are feeling like I just can't do it, there's that pit in my stomach, it doesn't feel right for some reason, this plan to go kind of feels like a cop out at the end of the day. Why not just lower it until you feel comfortable really building up your value? Because it does take a while to get out of your head and really start feeling like an expert in this industry. That does not come in year one. It typically doesn't come in year two. it comes after you've booked a certain volume. And then all of a sudden you're like, hell yeah, I'm worth $350 a trip. There's no doubt about it. So that's kind of my thoughts on Plan to Go. If that is something you are doing, go crazy, but think about it a little bit and think about the approach. All right. Last but not least, what happens if a client just doesn't pay my fee?
Then I don't work with them. I make it very clear that this is what the next step is. First, I ask them if this is what they're looking for. At this point, it's, what Haley's about, what her services are like. Is this the type of relationship that you want? And they either tell me yes or no. And if that's the case, perfect. They say, yeah, it sounds amazing. I mean, who's not going to say that? But I'll send over an invoice for the amount of $350 or whatever that looks like, and a credit card authorization. At that point, I put the ball in their court. And I always respect it. I tell people, take your time. This is up for you to decide. And here's the authorization. When you're ready, I get the email, the notification that you're ready to get the ball rolling here. I always explain kind of, what's the importance of getting the trip done? How fast does it need to get booked? Things like that that say, hey, I can work on this within tomorrow if you want to get started on this tomorrow. So I let them know that timeline as well. But yeah, I put the ball in their court, wait for the fee, authorize the fee, charge the fee the second before I even start working on putting their trip together.
I love it. I'm not going to think about your trip at all until you've paid this. So let's recap a little bit, make sure we're all on the same page, because the title of this podcast was basically how to pitch a fee so you never get turned down. And there's a couple of steps that if you're not doing each and every step, you're going to keep getting turned down. And the biggest step was making sure that you're finding a way to build value with your client before you're pitching the fee. Don't get on the consultation and pitch the fee. Hey, I'm Bird. It's so nice to meet you. By the way, it costs $350 to work with me. Probably not going to go well. Pitch the value of who you are, what you do, what your process is, build that value, right? So, step one is build value. Step two is to pitch the fee in a confident manner. You were really good about it, kind of explaining why you got to where you got with your fees and how they're non-refundable and how worth it is and what's included and what's not, right? Pitch the fee, and we'll actually go through a full pitch here in a minute, everybody. But after you've done that, step three is to put the ball in their court. Make sure that they understand the priorities of booking, right? We know at the end of the month, prices typically go up at the beginning of each month. We know there's availability issues. We know there's all these things that we could explain to the client to make sure that they feel some sort of sense of urgency. But really, it's making sure they understand it's up to them to move forward. And what I love about that, Haley, is you're showing them that you don't need them. I think salespeople sometimes get a little needy. And I love the term. Have you ever heard commission breath? You could tell when someone has commission breath, when they have to make the sale. I've got to make this because I'm not going to make my rent. Like that's a hard place to be in. So when you're saying, hey, this is on you, let me know as soon as you're ready. And that's when I'll start working on it. I think it's just a really good thing to show the client of like, you need me. I don't need you. I'm not begging for this business at the end of the day. And I would challenge you that even if you are begging for the business, just don't let the client know that. You can absolutely be needy without coming across as needy. It's also good dating advice, if I'm going to be honest. All right. So I would love to hear your actual pitch. Would you be willing to kind of give us what does it sound like to a client at the end of the day or at the end of the proposal? We've talked about budget. We've talked about where we're going. You know all the things on the trip. It's just a standard trip. So you're charging your average fee. Can you give us what it sounds like?
Yeah. After all of that, I kind of dive in and I say, well, I think it's really important to let you know how I make money. So with that said, I charge my one-time upfront fee of $350. Just so you know, that is non-refundable. So from here, what I'm going to do is send over credit card authorization. You're going to commit to that $350, and that's going to be my green light for me to go and get to work. Basically, that's going to compensate me for all the time it's going to take for me to put together your trip. And it's going to compensate me for the time we get onto our consultation or our proposal call. And that's pretty much it. I just, put it in there. Then I ask them, and I think it's super important. Do you have any questions? And people will ask questions, and that's completely fine. Questions like, okay, so if I charge this fee, is this the only fee that you're going to charge me? yes, this is the one-time upfront fee. It is non-refundable. And I explained to him, if I don't, here's the thing and how travel advisors work and how we get paid. For any commissions I get paid, that doesn't get paid out to me until 6, maybe 7 weeks after you travel. It depends on the trip, but this is compensating me for now, right? There's no problem with telling a client how you're getting paid in that sense. Let them know that if your trip's in a year, I won't make any money on your trip until a year, but you're going to email me 40 times from now until your trip in a year. So I promise you it's going to be worth it. And if you cancel, I make nothing, nothing at all. And I'm sure at some point we're going to touch on cancellation fees, change fees, things like that to structure your business so you're still valuing your income.
Oh, I love that you really took the time to explain how you get paid. You guys, just the other day, my dad's like, I don't understand how you make money. And I'm like, seriously? How do you not know? And I think we can all say the general public doesn't understand how we make money. So part of that pitch should be this is how I get paid. And I really love Haley that you pitch the amount right off the bat because what's happening, at least from a psychological standpoint, is now they hear the amount and now you're building on the process, the value, the next steps, and they're letting that amount kind of sink in. So they're not as shell shocked by the time you get to do you have any other questions? And I think that's important. I think people need the time to kind of be like, oh, wow, $350. That's more than I thought it was going to be. I knew there'd probably be some fee, right? Everybody thinks there's a fee at this point. You think of accountants and lawyers and all these other service-based people think there's a fee when they get on a consultation with you. And I even had a lady one time tell me she didn't go with me because I didn't charge a fee. And this was when I first started, and she's like, I just assumed you didn't really know what you were doing.
Oh,
I
wow. Yeah.
crack up and laugh over that. But I think throwing the number out there early, this is the part where I charge X. Then taking the time and explaining, this is how I get paid. And this is when I don't get paid. I love that you kind of added, like, by the way, if you cancel, I don't make a dime. Like, that's interesting as well to people. And then that third part about the next steps, here's the process, this is what we're doing. And I think if you can go in that flow, by the time you get to the end of this should be under a minute. You shouldn't
Yeah.
babble for
Yeah.
3 or 4 minutes here. So once you get all of that out of your mouth, they might be ready to go ahead and say, okay, here's my question. This is what I'm doing. I would also say, if you only do one thing or only remember one thing from this, I love asking for their commitment right there. Do you want to move forward? I don't have their credit card number. I'm not moving forward with them right in the moment, but I think there is something very serious about getting a verbal commitment from them because they now kind of feel committed to you, right? Even if maybe they wouldn't before, I think just saying like, I love to ask, is that the experience you were hoping for after I kind of lay out my process? And they always say, oh, yes, it's exactly what I was hoping for. Great. Are you wanting to move forward with me as your travel agent? And like they're looking you in the eye if you're on Zoom and it feels a little pressury and awkward. But I gotta tell you, if they say yes verbally, they're going to fill out that form. And that's the easiest thing at the end of the day is get the yes from them while you're making eye contact, while
Mhm.
you've built a lot of excitement about the trip and while they are ready. They want to move forward with you. They get to know you now and build some trust and they're excited. So I love wrapping it up with just give me a verbal commitment, basically. And if they say, I don't know, I need to talk to my significant other, that's where I would come in with the like, absolutely, take your time. Just let me know. I'm not going to do any work on this trip until you tell me, right? Like you could
Exactly.
back off after you put them to the fire. You don't have to keep them to the fire. All right, Haley, anything else that we can think of when it comes to charging a fee that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, start low and build your confidence, and I promise you it's going to be the best decision you make for your business.
Ooh, I love that. All right. Well, guys, we are super excited. We are Sava Travel. We are a new host agency that is in the industry and excited about all the work we're going to do. We've talked about our pre-departure team. We also offer one-on-one coaching, and we also offer fully trained admins. We call that our guest experience team that you are welcome to take advantage of. We go up to 90-10 commission splits, and we're excited to learn more about you. So reach out to us at sava, SAVA travel.com. Can't wait to talk to you guys.
Hi.